We're recording.
Okay. Well, I'll start the meeting in the absence of a chair, if that's okay. So, welcome to everyone. First meeting of the Climate Emergency Working Group for quite some time. Welcome, Ruth, isn't it? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And councillors. So our first business, 21-22-01, is the election of a chair. To elect a chair for, it says year 21-22. Yes, it is actually until May. I would like to propose Lewis, if he's willing to take it over. Seconded, Dale. Okay, all in favour?
Congratulations, Lewis.
Yes, you're allowed to vote. Yes, all in favour. Therefore, Lewis is duly elected as chair of this committee until May, when all chairs are re-elected. So, over to you, Lewis.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the vote there. As a disclaimer, I haven't chaired a meeting like this before. I'm in the presence of, well, the town clerk, 2 chairs of committees, and the chair of the town council. So if I'm doing something wrong, please don't be shy in coming forwards and helping me out.
I'm sure we'll be gentle on you.
Yeah, so we don't have. So as far as apologies go, I don't know if we've received any. Eve?
No, we haven't received any.
Okay. So moving on, disclosures of interest. 21-22-03, received declarations of interest from councillors on items on the agenda. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Not for me.
Okay. Sorry, was I meant to acknowledge that Councillor Good and Councillor Williams are in the room? Well,
That's fine.
okay, to receive written requests for dispensations for disclosable pecuniary interest. Have we received any of those?
We haven't received any.
Okay.
Sorry, Lewis, should I say that I am a member of the Canal and River Trust? I mean, I've just signed up to a donation, basically.
I'm not sure, but I'm sure it wouldn't hurt to declare it. Okay. Previous minutes, so we're going back quite a way here. Minutes for the last working group on the 11th of March 2021. I don't know if everyone's had an opportunity to review them, and if you were present and reviewed them, whether your memories are good enough to be able to.
I don't think anybody on this working group was present, so you can't approve them, can you? So much as just accept them.
No, they were. Lewis was here.
Yeah, myself and Ruth were
And
here.
Ruth.
Oh, sorry, I was just looking at the councillors present. I do apologise.
I suppose I can propose.
Yeah, they seem. It's hard to remember that far back, isn't it?
Yeah, I
they
mean,
seem pretty accurate.
Yeah, I've got no reason to doubt them. So I suppose that's approved. Okay, public participation. Members of the public are reminded that this is their opportunity to speak to the meeting on any topic relevant to the work of the council. However, they may not speak during the rest of the meeting unless specifically invited to do so by the chair. So, Councillors Good and Williams, you're here but aren't members of this working group. You're more than welcome to speak at any point in the meeting. I'd welcome your input.
No, that's good. Thank you. Yeah.
But yeah, if anything you want to contribute now.
No, thank you.
Okay, so... Oh, sorry. Well, I suppose Ruth is a member of the committee, so can contribute at any time, I would think. Okay, the future of the working group, so 2021-06. So this is split out into 3 different sections. I'm not particularly minded to formally review each one, but it's split out like that for the reasons of clarity, I suppose. So going forwards, in fact, before we go forwards, I'd like to go backwards. So at the full town council, I hope you don't mind me talking about our conversation at the end, Councillor Barton.
Yes.
But the conversation was that a yes, I do mind, or
No. Carry on, please.
But yeah, Councillor Barton said that what he was keen was for this working group to have something tangible to deliver, and was mindful of it not to be a talking shop, to borrow your phrase. I'm completely in agreement. I think that the working group previously was really well intentioned, but we had too broad a scope to try and solve all of the world's ills, and we're Bingley Town Council and a working group, so I think that's probably beyond our scope, unfortunately. So with that in mind, these three options, and I'm sure there are more options within, but these three broad brushstrokes give an idea as to what the future can look like. So continuing as a working group to identify specific items that would be deliverable by the working group. So a working group, for clarification, can house both councillors and members of the public. And we work together to deliver certain items. B here is consider becoming a committee, so that would change the composition of the working group, meaning that I'm afraid, Ruth, you wouldn't be able to sit on the committee, and it would be councillors only. However, you can have subsets underneath that, so a working group that is responsible for delivering a tangible thing, whilst the overriding committee sort of sits on top of it. I know that Shipley Town Council have got a similar arrangement in how they do things, and we could potentially consider that. And the third option is consider disbanding. So until recently, Keighley Town Council, they had a statement on their website talking about how it was a very important thing to consider climate emergency and whatnot. But when you followed the link, it was a single page on their website that was just giving tips for members of the public on how they can be more environmentally minded. Recently, they've actually appointed a climate officer, I think. So their stance seems to have changed. But option C would be that. And I would, my view is that by doing that, that's an indicator that we can't identify something tangible and deliverable, which would be unfortunate. But at the same time, to Councillor Barton's point, we don't want to become a talking shop. So I've done speaking. Over to you guys. Where do we consider the future to be? I'm happy to go item by item, or just have a general discussion.
I think I'd keep it as a working group in the first instance and see how it went forward, and then if it was we thought it was going to be successful as a town council, we could perhaps change decisions then. But going forward, just carry on as we are. I think the thing is that it's been going on a long time. Edwina were very keen on it, but after that, I don't think Bingley Town Councils are giving it a lot of serious consideration. So that's what I'd suggest.
Thank you, Councillor Good.
I agree. I think the good thing about a working group is that we can have members of the public involved. Yeah. And if we are going to remain as a working group, I think we ought to make a big push to invite members of the public to join us. Yeah. I'm glad that Ruth's here and Simon Kerr obviously not, but there must be other people out there who are keen to be involved in action, in activities which aid the climate. And I think if it's a council committee, that can be off-putting to people, whereas with a working group, you know, that they can come in and have their say and get involved.
Yeah.
That's my view.
I'll support that. I agree with that actually, because I really want to hear Ruth's voice, but other members of the public as well. I've just spoken to my next door neighbour coming down the hill. And he's really interested. I'm not sure he'll come to a group. He's busy. He's a solicitor, but he's really interested. And I think a lot of people in Bingley are interested, particularly younger people.
Yeah.
Councillor Williams?
I think if you are going to stay as a working group's typically been a task and finish work. It's the definition of a working group within councils. So I think your first port of call would be to review your terms of reference and get them re-agreed and seek to find some tasks. Once you've identified tasks, is to pursue those tasks with project plans and money and business cases and the like, without the deviations into what else can we do. You know, make the working group a task and finish, and then if you have finished that task, then find another task if you want to carry on. Rather than, as you say, we lost our way because the bandwidth of the existing terms of reference was so vast. It was help this, help that, do this, do the other, and I didn't think they were deliverable in the half.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Yes, Councillor Dawson.
I might be wrong, but I seem to remember, and also looking at the minutes, that one of the main kind of aims of the working group was to have a climate conversation
Yeah.
and to elicit views and thoughts from the wider community. Perhaps to pick up on Councillor Williams' point, that might be the task for this group to decide, whether what's required really, but have the community input into what's required to deliver what it wants, because then it might become apparent whether this group should stay as a working group or it should be a committee, or perhaps some other type of organisation needs to be set up. I mean, who knows really? I mean, so maybe that's its task, is to have to facilitate that conversation, which I think also work was done, wasn't it, Ruth?
It was arranged. It was arranged and cancelled. Well, it was more or less arranged. It was approved, but it wasn't. It was COVID that stopped it.
It was,
Because
wasn't it?
Richard was invited to speak.
Yes, that's right. Well, he was expecting to speak, and
Would he still be prepared to speak?
Oh, he would always speak, I think. He's so passionate about it.
Well, that's good.
When today he was talking to loads of students about zero carbon homes and all sorts of things. So I think that might be the task really, to set that up. And just one quick point was also, absolutely, there are so many groups, the Friends of Myrtle Park, Plastic Free Bingley, who are already doing fabulous things, aren't they?
Yeah.
That some sort of way of including representatives, perhaps even on an informal basis, but from these groups, to feed in what they're doing. So we're not replicating efforts, but underpinning them or giving them access to funds for whatever they want to do, or helping them. That might be one of the things that this group's other purpose could be, perhaps.
I think that's a great suggestion.
And just sort of as an addition to that, I mean, I was quite keen to restart the Green and Clean forums. And it seems to me that the Climate Emergency Working Group and the Green and Clean forums are very similar in their sort of their potential membership and in their aims, and perhaps that restarting the Green and Clean forums could be part of this working group.
It's one of its tasks. That's right.
One of its tasks. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Councillor Barton.
And I've come with 4 ideas, I think, about. I'm interested in focusing on Bingley rather than, sorry, this might be wrong, but the whole planet, because we can't fix the whole planet, but we can do the Bingley bit.
Yeah.
I've come 4 ideas about stuff that relates to the climate emergency in Bingley, apart from tree planting.
Fantastic. I know I'd be interested to hear those ideas, Councillor Barton.
Right. Well, so I'm voting for. You don't want to put them on the agenda now. They need to come back on the agenda for a future meeting, so that they can have consideration and proper discussion. But I'm happy to see that they go in the minutes, so that when we come back, we do have a proper discussion of where we go with them.
Okay.
When do you want to handle that?
I'm scrolling down.
Climate plan, under climate plan, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The only elements of the looking at the minutes rather than the agenda there, that'd explain why I couldn't find my place. The only element of 2021-06, and perhaps this might be overkill as per the climate conversation. Well, maybe or maybe not. There's a mention of youth involvement. So, as part of a separate project that I'm trying to look at, I've inquired about membership of young people 16 and above on committees, on working groups such as this. The response from YLCA was there's nothing preventing that from happening. Personally, this to generalise, this seems to be an issue that plenty of young people are very passionate about. I agree with a lot of what's been said here about encouraging people to get involved, be a part of this committee, or just sit in a gallery and contribute. I wonder if there's value in having a specific effort to try and get people aged 16 to 18, 16 to 20, maybe, to be a part of this. Is that something that would have value, or do we think that we aren't needing to do that at this point?
I don't see why not. If you're going to try to expand your working group, I mean, you need it from everywhere. That's how I see it. I mean, you don't want you don't want a room full, but at the same time, if you could get some younger views of interested parties, I think that would be a benefit.
Brilliant. Councillor?
I agree with that, and I think we need to be training the next generation of political young people who have political ideas about changing things. There is a safeguarding issue if we're talking about 16 and 17-year-olds and talking about 16 and 17-year-olds joining a group now. So that probably needs to be thought about, maybe by the town clerk, I don't know. But there is a safeguarding issue because
DBS checks.
Yes.
DBS checks I'm talking about, and yeah.
The information, as I understand it, and I'm open to be corrected here, is that for a committee like that, one member of the committee needs to have a DBS check. That's my understanding. I'm not relying on that as definite fact. I've been DBS checked. I wonder if others have been as well.
I'm DBS checked. I'm absolutely safeguarding trained up to about there.
I have, but my understanding is that now that you have to be DBS checked for each organisation that you're involved with. So your DBS check wouldn't be valid for the town council.
I'm surprised to hear that.
No, well, this was when I was
That's
volunteering
been
at the
for a few
magistrates'
years.
court.
You can read it online.
Yeah.
You can read mine online. So,
But when I was volunteering at magistrates' court, it was very clear that it only worked for magistrates and county court. It didn't work for any other environment.
Oh,
But you had to have another one for every. But I mean, the council can pay for that. So it's not a massive amount of money.
it's not. And if we're volunteers, which we all are, actually, my understanding that DBS checks are free, and also you can update them.
No, but the organisation would have to pay
for
for
the
it.
children, for the young people, but not we'd have to pay for them.
Well, I'm a volunteer.
Yes, but it's a town council organisation. The town council would have to pay for DBS checks for any
The
council.
schools will pay, for example, if you get one at a school, you don't have to pay, but the school will have to pay for it.
I think this needs checking, Chair, because my wife teaches in 11 schools and she does not, across 2 authorities, she does not have 11 DBS checks.
She might have one for
But
each
she
of
might
the
have one
areas.
she might have 2.
No.
Well, we can
it
review that out
needs
of this
sorting,
outside of
but
this
yeah.
meeting. Okay, so
But I'm very
Can I
much in
just-
favour of young people joining us because they are really interested in it. And I've got the Hezekiah view now. It's going to see me out. It's not going to see my grandchildren out.
yes, Councillor Dawson.
I think absolutely, young people would be welcome. I just wonder what their expectations would be and whether it would be a kind of this sort of environment would be something that they'd actually enjoy, really, and whether actually we talk about training the next generation, maybe they would ought to be training us, really. But I think that
Maybe.
I just think we need to have a think around what it would really look like, and how it would work. And, with the sentiment, yes, it would be great to get young people involved. How would they want to be involved rather than how do we assume we would want to get them involved? That's it. We don't want, we're assuming that some younger people would come and join this committee and sit for 2 hours on a Wednesday every so often, and that's what they want to do. I mean, their kind of involvement might be very different. And so I'm just wondering whether perhaps what we could do is, if the task and finished purpose of this group is to restart the Green and Clean forums or fora, then maybe that invitation should be extended and tried to target some schools and make sure that they know about the invitation for, sixth formers basically, isn't it?
Yes.
Or, people at college to come along and see who attends, or if the schools are already doing some work in this area, to ask them to come and do a presentation or something like that. And then take it from there, really, and take it slowly rather than any kind of presumptions about how it might work.
That's a good point. Yes, Councillor.
Just in addition to that, I mean, in my experience, you know, if you invite young people along, they want something to do. And the point at which you get the young people involved is when you actually have projects to do, because that would be, they would see a result in that.
Or
Whereas
projects
sitting
that
round
they've
a table,
decided.
that they've decided, because sitting round a table chatting, as you say, for however many hours would not, in my experience, float their boat, shall we say.
No, I think I think that's it's really important, isn't it? Otherwise, it can become a bit of a talking shop, which is what you wanted to avoid.
Yeah.
I tend to agree. I think that maybe the sentiment is right. Maybe the forum may not be, but for transparency's sake, about a different matter, I'm meeting with parents and teenagers on Saturday, and part of the topic of conversation is how would you like to be represented and how would you like to engage with the town council. Of course, that isn't a minuted meeting because that isn't probably a forum that those young people would want to be in. But I can certainly ask the question, and that could feed back to this group if that would be of interest. Before we move on, there were three sort of task and finish items that have been alluded to during this conversation. I just wanted to make them explicitly sort of explicitly clear as to what they are, so we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. So the first one that springs to mind is the climate conversation. So as far as I remember, there was a questionnaire that was being edited and whittled away to being something more tangible. Yes.
Sorry, have we agreed that we'll be a working group?
Okay. Would someone like to propose
I
that?
propose that we become a working group.
Seconded.
I'll second that.
And all in favour?
Great.
We're a working
Thank you.
group.
Sorry.
No. This is very helpful to me. Okay, so if it's okay, before we move on, I appreciate I'm going slightly off agenda here. Three items that were referred to there were the climate conversation. You'll have to help me out here because it's fallen out my mind on the discussion of other things. Trees, which I think we're going to come to. Green and clean. I feel like there was something else, but I'm sure it'll spring back into someone's mind if there was.
Well, climate plan, and I don't know what that is, but I'm going to come some ideas that might be usefully considered by this committee down the track.
Okay, so with the permission of everyone else, 21/22/07, the planting of trees. So, Councillor Owen, you received an email from wearepossible.org, and they have over to you if you'd like.
Well, I'm gonna rewind actually, if you don't mind. I asked Steve to find this, which came from a Green and Clean forum, which Steve was tasked. Were you tasked with?
I was leading on it with the previous working group.
Right.
We got to a stage when COVID shut it down. We had identified as a group a number of locations and asked councillors to go out and look for locations in their wards, and we compiled a note, sent that to Bradford Council reps, got some feedback on a lot of these places are on roadside verges. There's going to be cables and drains underneath it. They're probably not suitable, but we'll come out and have a look at them with you and do a tour. That day never came because of COVID shut us down. There was another plan to put some along Eldwick Beck, and there was a couple of max. There was Cottingley Wreck.
Do you want me to run through the list?
Yeah, if you've got the list there,
yeah.
if you that'd be helpful.
So there was Gilstead Wreck, Gilstead number 2 on the map, the land at the top of Canary Drive, Gilstead number 3, the Swan Avenue Nature Reserve, Eldwick around the edges of the wreck, Eldwick the Story Stones Field. Now there have been some problems with tree planting there,
They've
haven't
done
they?
again, haven't
Yeah.
they? Police guard on them now.
Lidl shielding from Myrtle Park, which the Friends of Myrtle Park have actually done. Beckfoot Lane, the Verge, Magistrates Court site and the junction of Ferncliff Road and Main Street. Around Beckfoot School, the rugby pitch, and by Dixon's Cottingley Academy. Crossley Wood, Giles Wood, some areas are heavily wooded, others not so much. Opportunity with a new build there, perhaps to do some tree planting. Off Clyde Street, Kell Street, that's the new development on the old annex site. To consider the various species, mini orchards providing fruit and flowers, and then knotted path road junctions to avoid, problems with vision, sight lines, and to avoid route disturbance. Oh, and then lastly, cross flats, the Grove, the square in the middle of the houses there. So that was the list.
Quite an
And I think
extensive list, isn't it?
we discussed it at the Green and Clean Forum, I think, first, because Sarah Hardman was involved and we all had maps and, so we've actually have got areas identified already.
There was an organisation offering us free whips, weren't they?
Yes.
Was it
It was the Woodland Trust.
Woodland
It was the
Trust.
Woodland Trust.
Yeah, that's 2 years back.
So, but going with the thing I shared with you all this afternoon, there are lots of groups out there promoting tree planting. The question is, how do we go about it? Obviously, the first thing we have to have is permission from the MDC. So my suggestion would be that this thing that was in abeyance, that they were going to come round and do a survey with us, should be reinstigated.
I don't know who was first. Councillor Barton?
Can I add to that list the triangle as you come down past, is it Ferncliff Road? I don't know, the T junction. There's a triangle there with nice flowers on, wildflowers on, behind whatever it is.
Well, what used to be the Granby as you go down the slip road onto
behind
the junction.
Aldi.
There's a triangle there.
Yes.
Some trees there.
Well, that was dug out, wasn't it, Chair? I think by the Green and Clean Forum.
They put the wildflowers there.
Bed about 10 foot round. And
Oh, you mean my bed?
Yes.
Yeah, if that's what you mean.
But a few.
It never actually sort of kicked off, did it, John? That particular. It was going to be
it's lovely, yeah.
A few mountain ashes that would actually shield the houses as well from the road.
No, not trees, no, there's flowers.
Sorry,
Sorry, Chair.
It's all right. Councillor Barton, I didn't hear the last part of your remarks, and I don't.
They would shield the houses from the road.
Yeah, Councillor Good is just indicating to me as an aside here that it's flowers and doesn't want trees on it.
No, I didn't say I didn't want trees.
Not appropriate for
I
trees.
extended the bed from 3 beds that we initially did, and I made it into one this year.
Big one.
And it was quite successful. It just wants clearing now, ready for next time. And I'll do the same again. But as regarding trees, it's a possibility. There's a big flat area on top, but there again, it's down to for council. It has trees all around the far end, which is sort of overgrown, not underplanted, where there's stuff growing underneath it, long grass and stuff like that. And there's a banking going down with quite a few trees on. You've just got to be careful where you put trees, haven't you?
Yeah.
I mean, I've just...
Well, it's not just planting them, is it? It's the maintenance afterwards.
And it's that they grow.
Yeah.
That is the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, but did we not do another project, John?
We've
This is a separate tree.
Oh,
thing
yeah,
with
this is-
Bradford
this
Council,
is-
isn't it?
this is
already done.
we've got our 5 trees for streets to.
Trees for streets.
Yes.
So we've
We're
done
doing that, but
the trees for streets.
but that's with to pay for that and.
And will they pay for all these? We don't have to pay any money for these.
Well, we'll probably have
The
to.
whips were going to be free.
Free, yeah.
And the idea was we put them in a place where no maintenance was involved. Did you see the Friends of Myrtle Park?
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Where they
birds,
put,
yes.
well, those won't be maintained as such.
No.
Whereas the trees that John's talking about, that
Yeah.
you've referenced,
Well,
are the
they'll-
5 in roadside
Yeah, yeah.
poppers,
Yeah,
which
John
would
and I
need.
went round, didn't we?
Yeah, they will need.
Ros and I have it sort of on the hand with photographs.
Yeah, but they
and
will
stuff
need maintaining to a
by
level.
the council though.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
by
But
us.
those areas we're talking now about Eldwick Beck and the
yeah,
wrecks and
yeah.
that, you just put them in and cross your fingers.
Then again, it depends. You see, if you're putting whips in, you sort of going by what we've done over there. I mean, they will grow in the bush, in bushes, but it'll be a long while. You know,
yeah.
whether it should be.
That's why they're free.
I mean,
that's why they're free.
well, yeah. And they put 500 in up there anyway, and we just bought two. They just bought two big silver birches to each end. You see, so they're mature things. I don't know what they paid for them, but they got a grant for that. You see, that's another thing. That there's probably money out there, available.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, would you like to say, Eve, about the two things that you'd looked at, please?
Yeah, there was one. I was talking to the clerk for Wilston Parish Council, and they've been planting some trees from your green in Keithley, as in YOR green, and they provide them for nothing. And again, the whips. She said that your green can advise whether there's capacity in your area for them, and what, if anything, is needed to be done to protect them as well. So I think that would certainly be worth looking into. Anything that's free is worth looking into. So that's in Keithley. Also the Woodland Trust.
Yeah.
Was the other one.
Yeah.
So, so there were some ideas there. I would suggest that the first thing to do is to revisit the survey that Bradford Council were going to do. Would you agree, Steve?
Yeah.
Perhaps, yeah. I would suggest that would be the first thing to do.
Well, as I'm not on the committee,
no.
Helen, I'd like someone else to pick it up,
Yes.
and I'm happy to provide email threads if you can find a willing volunteer.
If no one wants to volunteer, I'm happy to step up. I'm happy to do that, Steve.
And perhaps also I'd suggest that we contact this Your Green and see what they offer, and the Woodland Trust to see if they're still offering free trees.
Yeah, I find that networking type thing, but the more ideas you get, such as that, you can mix and match, can't you?
Yeah,
You know, you can use different streams, if you like.
Yeah. And when we've got that information back, then we
Then
can do
collect
like
it
they
all
did it
and,
at Myrtle Park, and maybe have something like, a tree planting weekend, or a tree planting month over a series of weekends.
Yeah.
And that way you can get people actually, boots on the ground, and people actually doing something.
You see, with your whips, all you need really, depending on ground, of course, but basically just you need a spade depth, and you put it in and heel it in, and that's it. But if you're going to do individual trees, it's a time-consuming job, and you need stakes, and you need things like that. So
You need to water them.
Presumably we'll get advice on that.
Absolutely. But I'm just making it clear. And the other thing, which is really negative, I know, but I went to Whipsey Park last week, and there was an avenue of trees being put up with two posts and a cross member, and every one had been broken off.
Right.
That type of thing. So, talking about protecting them, do you need some, need something around with a bigger? I don't know.
And the other thing is, of course, thankfully it seems to be going out of fashion when they put in saplings or whatever. They used to put plastic cones around them. Well, that's hopefully passé, gone out the window. It's no good asking plastic-free Bingley to help.
No, but there are I think there are alternatives I've seen on sort of nature programmes, but they often need that, especially if there's rabbits or deer or stuff like that, because they'll take the young stuff and they won't survive.
So that's the proposal then, that we follow up on where we are with Bradford Council. We contact Your Green, and come back to this meeting with the information and work from there.
Who's contacting Your Green?
Well, Eve will do it.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so proposed by Councillor Owen. Do we have a second? All in favour? Excellent.
Do you know, can I just say, sorry, John, do you know if Bob Thorpe is still
As far last time I heard, he was still in charge. He's the top man in
Yeah.
Woodland. Yeah,
I think he was the chap that you were liaising with, was he, Steve?
He was, yeah.
yeah. He's a good fella. He's
nice
he's
to
a good chap to talk to.
Can I just add? I was just checking whether there's a National Tree Day or National Tree Week, and there seems to be a suggestion there might be two, one in March and one in the sort of tree planting season towards the end of August. Autumn, or even a tree day. So I'm not really sure whether these are proper tree weeks or just invented by different organisations. But it might be something that if we, having done this research, decide upon something that we could
Feed into
feed
something
into,
national.
yeah, exactly, and do it
Excellent
as a kind
idea.
of campaign.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
probably possible.
certainly Bob Thorpe was saying that there was a particular season in the autumn
Yeah.
where trees planted then have the maximum chance of
Yeah,
success.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're sort of
So
dormant, you see.
you aim for that particular
November.
month.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on to agenda item 212208, the climate plan. So that has been provided as an attachment. Okay, so this is, as you would expect, given COVID and the cessation of these meetings as a result of that. This may or may not be out of date. It's well worth us looking at it. I don't think Ruth has necessarily got it in front of us, so I'll read through it. So the climate plan, Bingley Town Council has got 6 items underneath it. Offices recently built with environmental implications considered during the process and used as a heat pump.
Does it use heat pump?
We haven't got a heat
I
pump.
don't
No,
think so.
we
I don't think so
A
either.
previous meeting scratched that. It was erroneous data.
I think it was because it was decided that it was too
Yes,
expensive.
it was.
Yeah, that's right.
That was the thing, so it was
It was
scrapped on cost grounds, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you got it?
So
Yes,
does
yes, I've got it here, thank you.
so I assume that would need striking through if we're to
Yeah.
retain this climate plan. Use the website for public information on reducing carbon emissions. An example of Frome Town Council there.
Froome.
Frome. It's definitely one of those words that should be Frome, but it does sound right as Frome. Yeah, so this is sort of what I had in mind when I was saying if we couldn't agree on something tangible to deliver, this is the minimum that we should aspire to do. But that doesn't mean that we can't do that and deliver tangible things. Thoughts on that? How much effort that would take, and anyone interested in being involved in doing that?
I think the thing is, would we just end up replicating what is already available, or would it be a curation really of a lot of other resources? Because I don't know. I mean, have we got anything more to say that's not already been said by other people?
That's a fair point. I'd be surprised if between us on this working group we can come up with something novel to say about the climate emergency.
I think if we had something genuine to say about activities in Bingley that linked into other issues and had links to other organisations, then it would be, if we were doing a tree planting initiative, for example, or getting the Green and Clean forums going again, or there were some initiatives led by young people, or whatever it might be that we came up with, then I think investing time and effort and money into a part of the website that would reflect that would be really worthwhile doing. But I think just trying to maintain a page that has external links.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. Yes.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
I agree with your winks.
Do you think? I think it's just. I don't know.
So with that, yes, Ruth.
I guess with this kind of thing, we might want to sort of pick a targeted kind of like retrofit project, because to encourage lots of people, it's kind of hard. And if you came up with sort of problems with getting a heat pump being too expensive, and maybe the pool could be a good partner to work with there, because I know they are looking at, obviously, it's a big project, but when they are looking at redeveloping it, I spoke to Marcus before, and he's quite keen to do it in the most green way project, and that could be like, it's quite a nice project to kind of work with and support them in their ambitions to refurbish a space and to become more environmentally friendly. And there are resources around sort of redeveloping heritage buildings in environmentally friendly ways.
Let's hope Bradford are aware of them.
I think the last I heard was it was just shutting.
The pool, is it?
Yeah,
I
so-
know that the group are still trying to
Yeah.
save it.
Yeah, we are.
But I think maybe yes, if that something comes up, absolutely, Ruth. But perhaps I'm thinking maybe what we could do is if we had like a green and clean forum and we had a speaker there, then we could put whatever the presentation was, some information, whatever that speaker might say. That would be a special additional sort of bit of value, say on retrofitting, if we had a speaker talking about retrofits with some case studies around this area, then that would be really helpful, wouldn't it? So people could see what was going on. So that I think would be useful to have on the website. Making more of what we already do. I think that would be the thing.
Sort of something put something on when we actually have something active happening, and you
Yes.
can add the external links then,
I-
to other organisations or groups or whatever.
Because the other
Just
thing
sort
is,
of update it as we go.
yeah, but we had quite a stringent policy about what organisations
Yeah.
feature on the website in order to ensure that certain. I won't go into all the details, but you have to be really careful about what you link to,
Yeah.
and also local organisations can list activities on the website anyway. So I think that's sort of covered there. But I think, yeah, if we have something specific that's local and relevant, then yes, put it on. I mean, I'd write something like that, but I just don't want to spend like half a day compiling links to external organisations that I then have to put through the policy to see if they didn't have political links and this link and funded by so and so, and
It does sound like it might be a disproportionate amount of effort for a
Yeah.
minimal amount of benefit,
Yeah.
potentially.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Okay. Encouraging planning applications to consider.
No, go on.
To consider environmental impacts, Councillor Balfour.
Yeah, well, if you demolish buildings, you create a much larger carbon footprint than if you refurbish them, which is a consideration in planning. I'm not sure how much we are considered by Bradford Metropolitan District Council, but that is the case apparently. There's a second thing which is national, and that is if you demolish a building and build a new building, there's no VAT on it. But if you repair an old building, there's VAT on it. Am I correct?
You are correct, and it's something which my husband has been long campaigning on, actually, Dale. But
Good,
there you go.
Good. I'm very glad about
Many
it.
a letter
we-
sent on this issue.
Yeah, and now we've left the EU, Steve, we are entitled to make our own policy nationally on this. Now we have left the EU.
Yeah.
Can I just say, on the thing about planning applications, though, is that new builds have to meet certain planning regulations anyway, and environmental impacts. The neighbourhood plan working group, the neighbourhood plan has certain recommendations about standards to which buildings should be created. So that would
measured against.
yeah. So higher standards basically than the planning regulations. So that to a certain extent is covered by that, isn't it? Really.
And our planning subcommittee can do that with every plan. My conversation, my concern about the way that's worded is how do we encourage planning applications? Do we write to the whole thing? And if you were thinking of putting a planning application in, do this. Well, those rules already exist within the planning application. So, and the planning committee does actually invoke that when we consider planning applications. So I think this was my problem with some of the things that were being voiced. They're too wide, non-specific.
Is this also?
That's not a task and finish working group.
No. Is this also a little bit too nebulous and therefore needs to be struck through, or do you think that this can be shaped into
Personally, I
something
would,
more?
because
precise?
as Councillor Dawson says, it's in the neighbourhood plan for which, when passed, the planning authority will have to look at and pay heed to, and they've got their own ones in Bradford district anyway. And how do we know who is encouraging planning applications? Could be anyone.
But we could, Chair, if I may, I talked to the person who's got the bought the bungalow that was on the junction of Gawthorpe Lane and Beck Lane, and has actually doubled it in size and put, wood. It's not quite passive, she said. I was talking to her on Sunday, just walking past, that's all. It's not quite passive, but it's nearly passive, that building, which it's double the size of it, but it's actually a lot greener than the bungalow was before. It's a really good example.
Massive group of folk going like this.
Yeah,
outside.
but that's all well and good, Councillor Barton. But how do we, as a working group, or how do you, as a working group, encourage planning applications to consider that?
I think we can't do more than is already in the law. That's the thing. I mean,
Yes,
it, that's so it is already being addressed. I think your point about VAT is something that we could maybe bring back to this working group, because it is clearly an issue that there's a kind of an unfair, there's not a level playing field when it comes to encouraging retrofits and lower carbon initiatives than if you do a new build. So we could certainly consider that separately. I could get something together on that if you wanted. And we could consider whether we wanted to do, I would say the best thing is a letter writing campaign really, or to make a declaration about our views on it, which would have to be decided by the council obviously.
Yes.
But that would be something which we could consider.
I'd be keen for anything like that personally. That's a great idea. Okay, going back to the climate plan. We have 3 questions here: energy efficiency, heat efficiency, water efficiency. Given that this is under the subheading of Bingley Town Council, I find it difficult to necessarily understand exactly what this means. Open to your interpretations of those 3 bullet points.
I took it to mean. Sorry, Steve.
I was going to say exactly what you were just about to say. I think
I took it to mean in
there's
light of
subparagraphs
planning
of the one above.
applications,
There's subsets of the one
which
above.
again, that there are laws and there are rules, and
They are the
as
environment.
already
They're
said,
the 3 environmental impacts.
that have to be considered by developers by law, and that are also, as was said, part of our neighbourhood plan. They're addressed in there. So I think that they go with that statement above, which I think we've agreed is not helpful.
Okay. So that.
Sorry.
I was just going to, if I can add, the only other interpretation of that might be whether we could make this building more energy, heat and water efficient, by working towards retrofitting, even though it's a new obviously conversion, grey water recycling, especially for the toilets. Perhaps it's perhaps that's what was meant by that. So it's more of a medium to longer term project. Because,
actually, that was my interpretation as well.
Because is it gas central heating?
No, it's
electric.
all electric.
All
no
electric,
gas in
is it?
place.
Oh, isn't it? Right. Yeah. Okay. But we don't. I mean, obviously we've scrapped the sort of solar panels idea because it wasn't kind of a business case, was it? But it
I
might
don't
be
think we've
something.
scrapped it.
We've not funded it though, have we?
Deferred it.
Yeah.
It was cut from the budget.
But it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't based on a properly scoped out proposition, was it?
No.
But it might be something which is
I agree.
something that has to be scoped out in
Especially
the future.
So gas electric.
And the only other thing that related to that was that the places that we go for meetings, was there not some talk at some point about?
We did, just to interrupt you again, I wrote out to all the
You did, didn't you?
the meeting rooms and asked them could they confirm whether they were using green recycling, green energy, and some of them, we had a mixed bag response that we had. Some of them said don't have a clue who we use, some of them said yes we do as far as I know, and it carried on from there. So it was rent our building or not sort of thing.
To be honest, we're struggling so much to find suitable buildings to have full council meetings in. If we start getting picky about...
I don't think it was about picky. I think it was more about trying to, what we could do to encourage and understanding a bit more. That was my
But there's such a sort of limit on the places that we can actually meet in terms of
it is availability
access
because
and availability.
Yeah, there's
and comfort.
Because we have sort of fixed meeting dates. A lot of the evenings and I mean, I've done all this when we did COVID. they're already booked up on those evenings, you know. So
Yeah.
that's the problem. That's where
Yeah,
we've got.
we're really kind of
Yeah.
very limited in the places that we can use. And we're still obliged, as you know, to try and hold our meetings, you know, all around the different districts. But it's not actually as easy as it used to be, and it wasn't that easy in the first place.
Councillor Barton.
Oh, I was going to say, having led two inner city churches in Bradford, one in the third poorest parish in the Church of England, we did have a green energy provider. So there's no reason actually that in a much posher place like Bingley, churches shouldn't actually be using green energy providers.
I think at the moment, Dan, everyone's just trying to hang on to having an energy provider, aren't
Yeah,
they?
that's probably
Yeah.
true.
So I think you don't want to be messing. If you've got somebody that's providing your energy, you don't want to start messing around, because you might end up with nothing and end up with some massive tariff somewhere, mightn't you? So.
Depends whether you're using gas or not, doesn't it?
Ruth.
I guess going back to churches, I know that Baildon Methodist Church have done a lot about energy efficiency.
Oh, they've yeah.
So there's evidently sort of a green strand within Methodism, and I guess that could be something we could ask about the Bingley Methodist Church, and sort of, I guess that's sort of just exploring, like you said, the initiatives within the church around sustainability, and sort of thinking about how we as a group can kind of support that, and, you know, just highlight it as, you know, something that's ongoing.
I don't know whether that's anything to do with Methodism at all. I think it's the guy that was
John Anderson.
Yeah, that's the mover and shaker, and he's an expert on all this, and he did it, didn't he? And it's a while since I've read it. But,
Perhaps he'd be a good person to come and talk to.
There you go.
Clean.
He was the former head teacher of Bingley Grammar School.
Oh, right,
is it?
yeah.
Oh, right.
I think a shaker is a form of Christianity, so if that was an intended pun, you've done very well. Councillor Williams.
If I could sort of bring this to a head, what you're talking about there is churches, schools, Bradford, Bingley-owned towns, and what you've got here in this plan is the same questions asked of Bingley Town Council, Bradford Council, schools and communities,
Yes, yeah.
homeowners, businesses. You've now added churches. Can I suggest you decide what you want to do and then who you want to ask it of? And then come back with a specific, because I get a sense that you guys are meandering a little bit around the whole subject of those questions there.
That's possibly fair. Yes, Councillor Dawson.
So perhaps to address this, maybe if we were going to resurrect the Green and Clean forums, maybe what we should do is to work towards a Green and Clean forum where we've got one or two maybe speakers who could address these issues and provide information which is relevant really to all these different types of organisation who might want to come to work out how they can be more energy, heat, whatever, water efficient, so provide it as an information service.
Yeah, instead
really.
of asking them questions, send them
here's-
an information pack.
Yeah, or just invite them to an event, either
say,
in
this is what
person
we'd
or
like to know.
online.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a good form.
We can even do it as a
format.
virtual one if it's not going to work. You know, if people are still worried about meeting. I mean, who knows? But you know, we could. I'm sure we could maybe do it at the Cardigan House, perhaps, couldn't we?
Yeah.
And see if we can, and we could record it and then put it online and put it on the website, couldn't we? Then
Brilliant, yeah.
and then I could probably source some potential speakers. Well, I could ask Richard again if he'd do it, and there are other people as well, if not, who could, you know, share how people can basically save energy and improve their homes or community
And
buildings.
make sure that we invite, you know, people from the different church groups or whatever.
Well,
along
absolutely,
to-
we'll publicise it and say,
Yeah.
you know, if we give enough lead time to everybody,
Yeah.
can't we? We can say, this is, you know, everybody's welcome
If you
to
have
come
a
along.
big building, yeah, come along.
Yeah, that's right, and do that.
If memory serves, were we not part way through trying to organise that when COVID sort of ground things to a halt, or something similar to
Yeah,
that?
I think it's so. Yeah, so we could resurrect that.
Yeah, fine. Councillor
Just
Barton.
can I say that you know, as a householder in Bingley, community charge payer, and I would be interested in actually in a few solar panels, how much they cost to run. You know, sorry, how much the cost of them, actually how much comes back
energy
in.
they generate?
And what the crucial thing is what the cost of maintenance is. I'd be interested in that personally as a householder.
As would I personally, and to add to that, so what I was going to do, you're absolutely right about the meandering, Steve, because the same questions are asked repeatedly.
Yeah, they are.
The only comment that I was going to say was, I'm also a school governor, and we had a meeting on Monday, and I asked the question about solar panels there. So there's at least one school that's had the question asked of them, which is a good thing, and they would certainly be interested in attending something like that. As a question, because I don't know the answer to this. Someone who is an expert on solar panels may be a part of a company. Do we have sort of any issues as a council by effectively giving that expert a platform to speak and possibly sell? Is that a conflict in any way, or is that something
You're
we don't
probably
need to consider?
better getting somebody who's kind of independent, like the guy you were just talking about. You know, who developed the Belden Methodist Church, somebody who can talk generally rather than.
Well, I think that would be, he'd be able to give an experience of their, somebody like that would be able to talk about what they did in that and their approach, wouldn't they? I think you're always going to get in a situation where you've got people who are involved in products and services. It's pretty difficult to get an independent kind of consultant almost, really. But you could, I think, providing that the bias is made clear from the outset, so that people are aware of what somebody might be doing. Then I think people are aware enough, aren't they, to know if they've been, sold something, aren't they, really? And I don't think it would be a good idea to get a single solar panel company, for example, to come along. I think you'd want somebody with more general knowledge.
Did Bradford not have somebody? Sorry to interrupt, because we had the lady who came and talked about waste. Do you remember? She gave a fantastic talk at the Green and Clean.
Edith,
You know, she had this whole thing about how long it takes, a disposable nappy to, all of this. So, do Bradford not have somebody talking about green energy?
Probably, but that's the point I'm going to make. Surely, with all these solar panels, there must be some formula to evaluate what each individual panel generates, and then that's got to help with it to make it a business plan or make it cost effective, etc., etc. So perhaps we could inquire with Bradford Council. They keep telling us that they're environmentally friendly and what they're doing. I keep getting emails saying that they're going electric vehicles and one thing and another. So hopefully somebody will be able to just say, if you have such and such panels, it'll generate such and such amount of kilowatt hours or whatever you're and there you go.
Okay, weak chairmanship from me there. I should have intervened and stopped you having the conversation because we've had our hand up a little while ago. But thank you very much for all the contributions.
Going back to Belden.
I did have my hand up.
I know, but Ruth had hers up first.
All right. I thought you'd just waved that you'd seen me. I beg your pardon.
Anyway, John Anderson from in Belden is involved with Belden Friends of the Earth. So they did a big project with Glen Eyre Primary School, and they've created a toolkit through that. So that I would recommend getting John to speak about that.
That's a good idea.
And I guess with your example of a school, I guess that's what I'm interested in doing. If we can support an organisation in Bingley to achieve something similar to what Glen Eyre Primary School have achieved with installing solar panels and LED lights, then we've kind of got a concrete example to work towards. Then we can say this is our eco school.
A style model.
Yeah, exactly. And then other people in other schools can kind of develop ideas based around that, and then you've got something to show people.
I think that's a great suggestion.
Just as, what sort of roof's your school that you governor? What sort of roof is it? Is it a pitched roof or is it a flat?
There's one pitched roof and there's more flat roofs.
Right. Okay.
So what I'm intending to do on this document, the climate plan, is skip down to the transport section, if I may, unless anybody has any issues, because it's the same questions asked again and again, and I think Councillor Williams made a very good point about needing to target who we're talking to a little better, and I'm not sure that this document there has an awful lot of value. Yes,
so could I just interrupt, Councillor Cadell, just to say, Well, do you think we ought to make an action point out of our discussion around, because we've been talking about sort of energy efficiency, haven't we? But maybe to have an action point to go sort of to contact Bradford Council, to contact John Anderson and Glen Eyre Primary School, and although the interest had to be recorded, I could ask Richard whether he would be prepared to come and back and do the talk he was originally intending to do and had prepared about energy efficiency, with a view to sort of scoping out some kind of event, perhaps at the Arts Centre or somewhere, to 2 or 3 speakers where we could invite people to come along, which I would be happy to scope out.
Yeah, that's good.
And we could, you know, then at least provide some kind of information around that. Should we do that?
Is this something that needs proposing and seconding?
If you propose it,
I'll
I'll second
propose
it.
that,
Yeah.
I think they're 3 great options.
I'd vote for that, Chair. And I'm particularly interested in making our house more thermally efficient. How
I
do
think
say
Ruth
about
had
that?
something to say.
Yeah, please.
I was just going to say what Ross said, whether we should set some actions, so that's cool.
Okay. Great. So the last section here is transport. Now, I vividly remember former councillor Brazendale being very excited about the cycling element of this. So there are, to read through the transport section, car sharing. I'm not sure how we can, as a town council, incentivise car sharing. I presume that's beyond our gift.
Saltaire have a car club. I've no idea how it works,
I can try and find out.
but they do. You know, so
Okay.
Yeah.
Public transport. Do buses connect people to the train stations? I guess that's a simple fact-finding mission. What we then do with that fact, I'm
yeah,
not sure.
Well, I think they do, don't they?
I think they do.
they do.
They're pretty good.
Yeah, I think they do.
They do. When there is a bus, it connects.
Okay, so the cycling section has got 4 points underneath. Draw a sketch of the area that includes origins, destinations and barriers. Barriers may be physical, lack of cut-throughs or filters to good routes onto, e.g. the canal, or perceptual, fear of traffic going into the town centre, for example. Short as well as long journeys would be included. The question we should always ask when looking at routes is, could a 12-year-old ride it unsupervised? Would you be happy with an 8-year-old travelling the route alone?
Can I just ask Councillor Williams something here?
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be able to tell me. As part of the ACOM plan, part of it looks at connecting
Connectivity, yeah.
the outer villages with the town centre, and cycle routes are.
Yeah, it's kind of broad brush
It
arrows,
is, yes,
Chair,
yeah.
rather than cycles
Specific,
or walkways.
yeah.
It was, you need to connect this with that somehow.
Yes.
Yeah.
It didn't give us any answers. It
No,
suggested
no,
what could be done.
us to choose, I'm afraid.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I?
Yes, please.
So Bradford Council, I seem to recall, I'm not quite sure, but I don't know if it's pre-COVID or during, did have this consultation with those interactive maps where you could go on and say where you wanted cycle lanes to be. And they have got this big plan to create big cycle lanes between Shipley and Bradford, you know, through Brasinghall and yes.
I think that's complete.
No, I don't think so. It's still
I don't know which bit.
scoped out. No, it's a massive, great greenway that there's all these drawings for. But the issue that's never really been resolved is how anybody could actually cycle safely from Bingley to Bradford. You just can't do it. Unless, you know, and even if you go on the muddy canal, you've got to come off and either navigate Fox's Corner or Leeds Road and then go down past Smelly Beck, and, you know, it just goes on, doesn't it, really? So would it be worthwhile just writing initially to find out where we are at the baseline with Bradford Council in terms of, you know, what plans there are for either assessing cycling provision in Bingley and improving cycling provision in Bingley, just so we understand what work there is at that kind of, you know, district level, before we start trying to draw up plans and maps and the rest of it, because we might end up replicating quite a lot of work. And we might be able to uncover some plans that we don't know about.
Yeah.
I think that's a good suggestion. I'd be happy to take that as an action point to follow up. Is there value in looking at the other bullet points at this point? Because my suggestion would be that this document isn't, unfortunately, particularly helpful because we've agreed to strike through an awful lot of it because it's a little bit nebulous and repetitive.
Yes. It's not particularly focused on
No.
achievable
Oh,
actions. I would
No.
say.
we were invited, weren't we, to join? We were invited to join a transport group with Willesden
Yeah,
Harbour.
that's Bingley. I think that's Bingley
Bingley
Road,
Rural.
isn't it? Oh no, we were invited. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, we were invited.
As I say, I did get. There seems to have been some work done on it, but I don't seem to be able to get any information where they're at. I mean, this was last July or something like that. I mean, I came into it late. I think when John Brazendale, I don't think he was the representative for Bingley Town Council. I put my hand up and said I'd follow it, and he gave us a bit of information. And then I tried to contact the lead officer, if you like, which was Arden Clark, and he's never responded back. He's never got back to me. So, what do we do?
Did you want to continue?
Yeah, I was going to finish. Actually, the Canal and Rivers Trust are improving the towpath through Shipley at the moment, which means that actually riding a bike to Leeds from Bingley is reasonably safe. I know it's 17 miles. I think it is 17 miles by canal. I've ridden it the other way, and the bit through Shipley was really, really rough. I've also ridden a bike to Skipton, or from Skipton to Bingley. The bit that goes along from the roundabout at Cross Hills to nearly Skipton actually. That is terrible. That's awful because of the tree. It's great to have the trees there, but actually they've really chewed up the canal towpath. So it might be of interest talking to the canal path not sufficiently surfaced. I don't think it's too bad through Bingley. I mean, it's not great.
Oh, well, I've got to take issue with that. It's
Pardon?
absolutely diabolical up by Five Rifle.
It is, it's awful.
Absolutely terrible.
Okay.
It's just absolutely. You can't walk on it without going like that round.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, we've got.
And to be honest, from Darley Gap down to Roberts Park's not marvellous.
No, it's not.
I've cycled that without falling in the river, the canal, so that must be an achievement.
But it is,
Councillor Dawson.
it's
I
muddy.
wonder, one of the things which I think we could really benefit from is a much better connection between our two parks here, between St Ives and Myrtle Park. And so I think maybe if we were writing to Bradford Council about cycling provision, I think we could sort of emphasise the requirement to try and make it easier for people to access both parks on foot or on bike, really. Because at the moment, so many people drive to St Ives, don't they? Whereas if there was actually a really lovely walk that connect, from Bingley up there, people would do the walk as part of their exercise, wouldn't they? And enjoy that, just rather than just driving to St Ives with all the issues around parking and the rest of it. So I think that might be something to which we could aspire.
If I might add, that's also consistent with the funding that Marcus did and announced on Facebook. It's probably not just his to announce, but funding going into local parks. So I think that's consistent.
So it's a
with that
pitifully
intention.
small amount, though, isn't it? I mean, I really didn't want to, but we don't know what it's for. £57,000. It's an absolute wreck. There's been no scoping, no consultation. I mean, who knows what it's going to go on? It's just.
There has been consultation because the district councillors were involved, and I think some Bingley councillors.
Yeah, there's been consultation, but who
involved.
consulted it? What the output
But who
was?
decided what the
But who
conclusions were?
consulted the kids or the parents or the?
Yeah, I think they use their consultation portal, I would imagine.
Oh well, maybe it's all whatever. But
Can I
mean,
just go back to John's point about this Willesden Harden?
Yeah, it's called Green.
Collingwood thing.
What's it called?
Bingley Rural.
Green.
And they seem to be very keen to make links with Bingley Town Council.
Yeah.
Would it be possibly, again as another action point, would it be possible for you to get in touch with Ken at Harden and just,
I think she's tried, haven't you? Oh no, we're getting
Bingley
mixed up.
Rural Green Travel Project.
Yeah,
That's it,
That's it.
and I know they've sent us emails and things, and it's all during COVID, but perhaps somebody from there could be invited to speak either at the town council or at this next meeting, just so that we know.
Get an
Well, that's
update.
it. That'd be useful
Would-
because
would-
then you could have.
Could I propose that as an action point? Yeah.
Absolutely. Is that something that needs to be seconded?
No,
Don't look at me.
no, sorry, I'm just looking around generally. Well, yes, let's, yeah,
I'd second it.
all in favour?
I'm in favour.
I quite like the idea that what we try and do is have people speak and sort of inform us as to
Yeah.
the different options available. I personally like that. I don't know if this is something that necessarily needs proposing and seconding, but I think that having gone through this climate plan, it's become clear that it's a collection of ideas rather than a plan. So I don't know whether there's value in just crossing it out and perhaps starting something afresh, or we create some sort of mission statement alongside the terms of reference to try and provide us some greater direction. I don't know what people think to that.
I mean, I think the terms of reference should provide the mission statement, really, in essence, shouldn't they? You know, and taking Steve's point, it should be task and
It
finish.
should be deliverable, shouldn't
Yeah,
it?
absolutely.
Well, these are potential projects, aren't they, that we've just
You can always
discussed?
add to them over the years.
Councillor Barton.
Well, I wanted to add a few. Perhaps now is the moment
Please,
to do
please
that.
do.
But then,
I was just going to say I really liked Roz's idea about improving connectivity to St Ives as kind of as a plan. I think it's quite an ambitious plan because it's quite like, I don't have a car. When I walk up there, you've got to walk over Island Bridge. There are a
It's
lot
nightmare,
of
Ruth, isn't
there are,
it?
so it would be quite ambitious, but I think it would be a really nice project to work on. I think it would speak to families, which I think is quite nice.
I think it'd be extremely worthwhile, actually.
Yeah.
I completely agree with both of you.
Because if you go up even through the woods, trying to cross the road there is
Well,
a
the,
nightmare.
the
isn't
problem
it?
is that on foot it's difficult because and then on cycle it's difficult because you've got the Packles Bridge
Yeah.
to get over. It's just difficult whichever way, isn't it? So I think there just needs to be some thought about, and also then getting over the Twine safely
That's
and getting a proper
if you've got kids
crossing.
with you, that is not fun.
No, it's really, especially if you're coming from St Ives back
Yeah.
to Bingley, that's even more awful. So I think there's a lot that could be done.
Which it would be interesting to know if this rural Bingley rural group have put any thought into that.
No.
Again, we don't want to start off on some project and then find out that they've already
on the work.
scoped it out and done all the work.
Yeah.
I think this goes back to something that you said earlier, Councillor Owen, about making sure that local groups are properly engaged with, so we know what they're on with, so we don't redo their homework, if you like. Sorry, Councillor Barton, you had your 4 propositions.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they're going down in number because we've had a discussion of one which was planning, demolition or refurbishment, and the VAT question. That was one of them. Second one is that we have a portion of a very large peat moor in our town council area. Peat is one of the best absorbers of carbon dioxide that there is, and I was going to suggest that it is owned by Bradford Metropolitan District Council. It overlaps with Ilkley Council and Baildon Council, so those two also have. I wonder about whether we could write to Bradford and ask them what their plans for the moor.
That's out for consultation at the moment.
Is that out for consultation?
Yeah,
at the moment?
I've received an email personally because I've previously commented on the local plan,
Right.
and we got one sent out by Eve yesterday or today. The
I'll
Yorkshire.
look for it.
thing.
But
I'll have a.
that's a really
Talking about
big
moors.
absorber of
Sort of
carbon dioxide, peat.
South Pennine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've read that. Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry,
that-
please,
I'll look
please
that
carry
up.
on, Councillor Barton.
South Pennine Moors SPASAC planning
Yeah, I had that this week.
SPD adopted. Well, they've adopted it, so it was advice that they have adopted the SPD, the supplementary planning document and planning framework.
Right.
So whatever you're talking about would be in there,
Yes.
but if it's not, I don't think they'll open it again. So they've just adopted it as a policy. So.
Yes. But it is in our town council area, and it is a big carbon dioxide absorber. Second one, I talked about demolition. We've talked about demolition or refurbishment and VAT. and we're going to take an action on that. Third one is, and this may be beyond our capacity, and that is stuff like this. Actually, is it repairable or not? White goods, are they repairable or not? Because it puts a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere somewhere in Turkey or China to produce a fridge or a washing machine. If it's not repairable, then it has to go to its waste and its right. And the great advantage of stuff that is repairable, this may be beyond us, chap. The great advantage of stuff that is repairable is it creates local jobs that are high value. So, you know, in the bad old days, 40 years ago, there were guys who repaired radios and televisions and stuff like this, and washing machines. Actually, my brother-in-law used to provide parts for them. Maybe that's beyond our thinking. Mobile phones is another one. But we don't want this stuff going into landfill, and it takes carbon, and it takes, you know, carbon dioxide to produce it, and rare metals and all sorts of stuff actually.
Yeah.
But maybe that's beyond us.
Given your listing several points, do you mind if Councillor Dawson
No, carry
Owen
on.
come in on?
I just wanted to ask, but how do you see us doing something that
Well,
I
I don't
completely get
know.
it,
I don't
Del.
know. I'm not sure. Maybe that's too big an issue for us. But it is generally a good point about we want local jobs in Bingley, not in high-skilled local jobs in Bingley, not in Turkey or even worse, they're both pretty bad actually, or China, which interested in that. And, you know, I'm quite prepared to believe that that is totally beyond us, but generally, ideologically, that's good. The difficulty about it is that if you can repair it, it's more expensive. So a Miele washing machine, which will last you for 25 years and can be repaired, is more expensive than one that, and that's a big issue. So maybe that's completely beyond us, and I'm just sitting down thinking, briefly this afternoon.
Can I just throw in there? Yeah, this is just a point of information. There is a Shipley Repair. Is it Shipley Repair Shop or Shipley
Cafe.
Repair Club? Shipley Repair Cafe. Thank you. And I know this Saturday there's a big sort of sustainable day. So Shipley Refill are going to be there. There's a clothes swap, and I think Shipley Repair Cafe are there. Down at
Kirkgate, I think.
Kirkgate, it is where they're usually held. So, just as a matter of interest, we have got a local.
Yeah.
There is a local movement.
Yes.
Which I'm not saying that we should have anything to
No.
do with, but just for your information.
Well, we could affirm that, couldn't
Yes,
we, by
yeah.
having a piece on the council website, or just say this is available locally.
If I might chime in as well, your example of Miele is a really good example. However, something that's been in the news lately is Vimes boots. So that's inspired by Jack Monroe and Terry Pratchett, where the idea is that a rich person can afford to get a £100 pair of boots that last for 10 years. A poor person can only afford £10 pair of shoes, but has to refresh them far more often, and the poor person ends up spending more money. But the point that you make is a fair enough point.
I'm not sure that we can take action on that. The two other things are both Bradford connected actually. Bradford is creating a clean air zone. I'm really interested in how much nitrous oxide and carbon dioxide goes into the air on Park Road in particularly, where I live, which has loads of traffic, and of course I'm really interested in that. I don't know that there's anything that we can do about that, but we have got a clean air zone in Bradford that's going to start in March.
As a piece of history, I think Councillor Dawson will be able to jump in here. We did write to several, certainly with Bradford, looking for an air monitoring station.
Yeah,
It used to
absolutely.
be by the Magistrates' Court, was taken away, redeployed into Leeds, and we couldn't. but they suggested we write to Leeds University to see if we could sponsor
Wasn't it
something.
Leeds University had put it on Harden Moor?
It was
or
all
something, do you
it was all
remember?
slopey shoulders stuff, wasn't it, at the
Yeah,
time?
it was
It was
owned by Bradford
dodgy.
Council, and they decided to redeploy it somewhere in Bradford. But separate to that, we were put onto somebody at Leeds Council that might be able to help us with some air quality monitoring kit. But it just ended up just this endless.
It was slopey shoulders. It was everyone
Yes.
passing the
It
body.
was
slowly.
just-
Absolutely.
And what we need is, as you've just said, is we want our air quality monitoring kit back in
Yes,
Bingley.
yes.
And find out what's going on, so we could just write back to them. I can dig out the emails probably. Now I've got my council
Off you
email
go
back. I shall dig it out and find out where it got to. And yeah, you're right. It was just it used to live, didn't it,
It
on the corner
became
of Third
ridiculous.
Kill.
didn't
It was-
Just,
yes.
I've also followed it up, and it just revolves round and round and round through academics and couple of Green councillors in Shipley who got no idea about it basically, right. So yeah, if that's an action point, if possible, if we're
I'll
agreeable.
look in my emails and
Pardon?
see what I can find. I might not come up with anything to help, but
Okay.
I'll try and dig it out. I did try. I just remember kind of losing the will with it,
Yeah.
really.
Would
Well,
that be all right then for you to follow?
Yeah, dig out where we got to with the air quality monitoring. But honestly, the only way I think we'd ever get it back is if we actually bought our own,
Yes.
did our own thing, and set it all up separately. Because if we, waited for Bradford Council, it's really not going to happen.
Maybe
No.
it's a task for the working group.
It could be,
Either next year or the year after, to be ready for the budget the year after.
Yes.
And I think the clean air zone, I may be very off mark, but I think that's been shelved for the moment, hasn't it? Because
Only
of,
temporarily.
or is it coming back? Is
No,
it?
it's coming back.
The latest one that I read was that it'd been to give people more time. It said that it was going to be in the spring.
Yeah,
So-
they're going down the list of different vehicle types, and they're now down to white van men.
Right.
So they've done the lorries, and they're coming down in size now. So they're now, one of my neighbours, the guy who did the plumbing here, is struggling whether to take it's basically a money bung from Bradford Council to get him to shift his van into newer pastures. So
Yeah.
throw money at it.
So that's a possible future. I'm not saying that we can solve climate emergency this minute, today, but that's a possible future task. And the last one was on rubbish and recycling. We've got a recycling thing here in Bingley. I'm just conscious that British fast fashion has been dumped in the Atacama Desert that we hear about this week. Greenpeace, I should express an interest here because I make them a small contribution every year, they tracked a TV that had been dumped somewhere in the United Kingdom and ended up in a rubbish dump in Lagos, which is not great actually. So I just wonder, as an action point again, if we could have a report from Bradford Metropolitan District Council on recycling.
I suppose there's no problem with asking the question. I suppose there's no guarantee as to whether we're able to receive that report or an answer, but we can certainly ask the question.
Well, at the last, I think it was Green and Clean Farm. Or when Edith Gruby, I think that's what it's called.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Basically, Bradford Council sell what they can sell to the people, and the rest goes to North East somewhere and gets burnt. So that's
It's going to
it.
be burnt here, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
As and when, yeah.
Incinerator. Let's not go there.
So
Those were all my ideas, Chair, so I've now finished and gone quiet.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Councillor Barton. Councillor Williams.
I follow Simon Cook on Twitter, who most people might know of, and he published a meme yesterday which said there were basically 11 rivers in the world that were responsible for 99% of the plastic pollution of the oceans, and his map showed you named the 11. If I can find it, I'll flag it up to the team here. because it was interesting. Oh, there you go.
It's not an action point, is
No,
it?
no,
But, I
just to
mean,
show you, 10 streams carry 95% of all river-borne plastics into the ocean.
one of them would be the Nile.
It's the Niger, the Nile, the Indus, the Ganges, the Yellow River, the Amur, the Haihi, the Yangtze, the Pearl River, and the Mekong. So none of them are in Europe.
Bingley.
You'll all be pleased to know, but it doesn't say that. As you say, it's not our rubbish. That's finding its way out there.
Yeah, but they're making things for us, aren't
Yeah.
they?
No, I get that. Well, and
Manufacturing.
they don't seem to be. They're going to be throwing it down a river, and that's the point of this particular map.
Ruth.
Going back to air quality, if you did want to do sort of a defined project on that, my husband Sandy is a researcher at the University of Leeds
Hey!
and works in chemistry and the School of Earth and Environment. So if we did want to do that, I could ask him whether he could set that up. We did that in Shipley with Bales of Friends of the Earth with air quality monitoring tube. So if you want to do that, I could ask him if he can design a project, get any funding for it, that kind of thing.
That'd be
There you go.
brilliant.
Sounds great.
You've just
Very
got
good.
yourself a job.
Yeah.
I will
Yes.
ask Sandy when I
That's
get
a
home.
proposal. Seconded. All in favour? Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Might I suggest that we've come up with an awful lot of tangible ideas that I'm quite excited about, and I'm seeing a fair few smiles around, or I'm assuming there might be smiles around the table at excitement as to what might come. So would it be helpful if I were to collate all of these ideas into a document? So
Yeah, that would be excellent.
for the next meeting, we can hopefully sort of prioritise them and consider.
In relation to Clark, who's been taking minutes.
Yes.
So I'll send them to you, won't I?
Yeah.
So.
And we're recording as well, so I might have given myself quite a big job doing that, but that's a good thing. Is there anything else that anyone would like to raise relating to the climate plan, or anything else that they feel that we can be on with?
That's enough.
I think
going
we've
on
done
with,
enough,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, just a bit. Okay, so the date of the next meeting. Okay, so I think that these were 4 weekly, if I recall correctly. That's a big if.
Can I make a suggestion, given the number of working groups and things we've got going, that maybe 6 weeks would be a
At
better
least.
Or even
gap,
2
At
months.
least.
or even 2
2
months.
months, yeah.
You know, there's a lot to do.
Sure,
In the it's not like there's nothing to do in the meantime.
that's true.
There's also a lot of meetings juggling about at the moment.
Yes,
So.
yeah.
And as I say earlier, my view was that maybe you should review the terms of reference first
Yes.
and get them through the full council, and then
Good point.
you're set, ready to go then, aren't you?
Okay.
Just to re-legitimise the meeting.
The terms of reference are on the website, Lewis, if you want to have a look at them.
I will. Thank you very much. Might I suggest the 3rd week in March? I said 3rd week because my wife is wanting to go away in the 4th week. And I would rather risk the collective ire of you people than hers. So Wednesday the 23rd?
You only said that because you knew you were on camera, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely not. I promise, Laura. March
I think
23rd.
so. And if you'd like me to, you know, when you've had a look at the terms of reference, I'm quite happy. You know, or I'm sure Steve or Roz would look at them.
Brilliant.
You know, just to
Yeah.
just so that there doesn't have to be much discussion about them. If they're good, then they don't need,
Bigger.
you know,
Yeah.
much conversation.
Okay.
I won't be able to come to that meeting, but okay, please let's go round. You know, I can't do this, I can't do that. All right.
So sorry, are we going to do, you're going to bring terms of reference back to the 23rd of March meeting, or just get some to the next full council, Lewis?
I will do my best to get them for the next full council.
That's a good idea.
And just get
And we
get
can
on
share
with
them
it, yes,
round
I think
anyway,
that's,
can't we? Get on
because
with
it would
it.
have to go back to full council anyway, so you might as well just put them straight there, mightn't
Yeah.
you? Yes.
Yeah, I'll circulate it through the group and any interested parties that are here that can help or edit. Okay. That's the end of the agenda. Is there anything else anybody else would like to raise?
There's never any other business. That's fine. It's 8 o'clock. That's perfect.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for
Thank you very much.
coming.
Well done.
Well done. Yep.
Well done.
Sorry, John.